Hey YouTube friends, this is Brendan from Heartbreaker Guitars, and we are in the Heartbreaker showroom with my very good friend and master guitar tech, Miss Teresa Topaz. Teresa, how you doing?
I'm doing good today. How are you?
Good. Teresa today, oh, and I almost forgot, this is Toby the Beagle over here in the corner, our shop dog and mascot. So Teresa, today we're talking about setups. As you know, every guitar that leaves the shop gets a full setup. So tell us, so we know, what is a setup? What exactly happens?
Setup is very important for every single guitar player. It basically is a series of adjustments that happen to the instrument to create a balancing act so that way the instrument plays perfectly. It's the same thing as taking your car to the mechanic. And it needs to happen a couple times a year, if not more, depending on your level of playing.
Cool. Okay, I want you to take us through everything that is done in a setup. We're going to go back to the bench. We're going to have you point out all the important factors of a setup to us. Okay, so before we go in the back and you show us how this all works, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how long you've been a pro guitar tech and a little bit about your background and experience.
Sure. Well, I've been a musician for as long as I can remember. I've been playing guitar for 25 years, and about 6 years ago I decided I wanted to increase that knowledge and really kind of dove deep into this instrument. I believe that if you're a player, you should master your instrument, and I went for certification, started studying under specific luthiers that are just amazing, renowned musicians and luthiers in their own right, and became obsessed with wanting to master this instrument. So I got to the point where I was actually becoming certified with major brands like the entire Fender line, Martin guitars, Taylor guitars, anything I could get my hands on basically. And just the more I did, I just got that much more down the rabbit hole. And to me, it's just so much fun because you can take something that's broken and lifeless and bring it back to life, and the ability for it to sing again and make music. So it just became an obsession. So yeah, I just came from the Bay Area, and so I was one of the main repair shops and techs up in that area as well, and also the only female. You know, I just took the time and really built a name for myself, and it's just, it's a wonderful thing, and it's fun. I love repairing guitars. It's fun for me.
Well, we love having you. Teresa is an incredible tech, and she works on some pretty serious brands. As you know, the brands in our portfolio, Loudon Santa Cruz, Hudson Dalton McPherson, and you know, we don't just let anybody touch our instruments. So, without further ado, I want you to take us back and show us what a setup is and how it's performed.
I'd be happy to. Let's do it.
All right, let's check it out.
All right, so when it comes to a setup, the first thing that I want to do is assess the instrument. So I'm going to go and I'm going to check action height. We check it at the 12th fret while the first fret is capoed. And then after that, I'm going to take a peek at the neck so I can see which way the neck is going, so I know what adjustments I'm going to have to make there. Overall, I'm going to look at the body structure of it, check the bridge, make sure there's no bellying up. These are conditions that can happen with little to no humidity or too much humidity. I'm also going to look at the nut, which this little guy and this little guy, which is the nut and the saddle, they're the smaller pieces on the instrument, but they have very big jobs and they can cause a lot of problems if they're neglected. All right, so I'm going to check for proper action height at the nut. Each string is going to have a different action height that it needs to be at. So we're going to test here, and then on the high E. And so we want to make sure that those nut slots aren't too low, because if they are, they can cause buzzing. Next, I'm going to take all the strings off in a general setup, and I'm going to look at the frets. And so frets, this is pure nickel. Most guitars that are going to come out of the factory, no matter what the brand are, they're going to be nickel. Nickel's a soft metal. Now you will find some with steel, but it's not that common. Next, I'm going to look at the frets. I'm going to look for any tarnishing, any corrosion or whatnot. I'm going to polish those frets. What you polish the frets with is a steel wool that's a quadruple zero and very light. You don't apply too much pressure. And then after that, I'm going to clean it up, and then I'm going to hydrate the fretboard. Hydration is so important when it comes to a guitar, whether it's acoustic or electric, because it's wood. Wood needs hydration to stay alive and to be able to still have sustain within it. So we see a lot of problems when it's not humidified or if there's no hydration in the instrument. So next after that, I'm going to pay attention to all the hardware. I'm going to polish it. I'm going to oil the tuners themselves. I'm going to come down to the bridge. I'm going to oil that as well. Now on the saddle here, we want to check for any spurs, any type of sharp edges, anything that can be causing any pinging or any unwanted frequencies within the guitar itself. I'm also going to check for the height here, make sure that that's well balanced within the nut, and there's a balancing act that happens. And so once that's done, When I go to restring the instrument, something down here, the bridge pins are also really important because over time, these have teeth and they hold the string down like so. And over time, these can wear out, and so that's something to take in consideration because it can also cause unwanted frequencies. So when I go to restring the guitar, if I've already assessed which way I need to adjust the neck, I'll make slight adjustments. I'll retune it to pitch, double check again, checking my action and seeing exactly where it's supposed to be. Now, action height is very important because each guitar will have a specific sweet spot that it needs. Electrics have a lower range of action, acoustics are a little bit higher because we're dealing with different gauges of strings. There's also different radiuses. And so within that sweet spot, that's where we create perfect intonation. Intonation is where the guitar is in tune with itself. Now this is key. Intonation is the most important part of the setup. So even if you tune this guitar in its open string state, wherever you fret on that fretboard, it will be sharp or flat depending on how far away those strings are. If the strings are sitting like this, your intonation is all over the place, right? So guitars are math. That string has to sit at a certain spot above that fretboard to create a balance and create proper intonation. If your guitar looks like this or like this, it needs an adjustment and it needs intonation. And again, this is why setups are needed. I recommend every 6 months minimum. If you're a gigging musician and if you're in the middle of recording, I would suggest intonation being checked every single time that you sit down to record. But these kinds of things would be very beneficial for you to know how to make those minor adjustments, but please make sure you're getting your instrument set up at a minimum twice a year. There's a long rod in this neck. Most acoustics, most electrics have these, and it's called a truss rod. If that truss rod does not move within the wood itself, it can lock, and we don't want that. On an acoustic, there are two styles of necks. We have either a bolt-on neck or we have a dovetail joint. It's a very big problem if a dovetail joint style guitar has a locked truss rod because it's a very large repair. So this neck right here inside that truss rod goes all the way down and it's surrounded by wood. And so we want that to move freely, and that's one of the ways that we create proper action height. The last step of my setups is, in order to create proper intonation, the guitar has to be in playing position because gravity takes over. And so what I do is I tune it to pitch, then I check it at the 12th fret with a tuner, a strobe tuner preferably, so we can actually make sure that we're tuning this correctly versus just with a clip-on tuner. If the notes are sharp and flat at the 12th fret, we have to make minor adjustments either with the truss rod or with the saddle, depending on the age of the instrument. And so that's how you create proper intonation. You can also check it in between your setups and in between adjustments as a player just sitting at home by putting a clip-on tuner and just checking to see if you're going 1 or 2 cents sharp or 2 cents flat. If you're dead accurate at the 12th fret as well as open, then your intonation is correct. So these are the key components that help make your guitar sing and help you increase your ability as a player, whether you're a beginner or a professional musician. The instrument's meant to be balanced, and without setups, the guitar can't sing. All right, so now you see why setups are so important and essential for a guitar's health. And this is why at Heartbreaker Guitars, every instrument that's sold gets a proper and full 100% setup by me to make sure that when it gets into your hands that it sings the way it should. Setups are so important, and this is why we go the extra mile to make sure that you have the ultimate playing experience. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Have an awesome day.